All right, here we go. Um, just move this. All right, how's it going? My name is Nick Moran. This piece originally first appeared on my Substack, Attention Economics, but I just figured it would be really helpful if I basically read through it aloud and then just kind of stop to clarify certain points, go a little deeper, explain kind of what I'm talking about. Um, and if you want to get any of my other work, just check it out on Substack. But yeah, let's get into it. This piece is called The Lost Art of the Inside Joke. This piece is called The Lost Art of the Inside Joke, subtitled The Death of the Inside Joke in an Age of Algorithmic Laughter. Wow. All right, here we have the dreaded 6'7" meme. That's the kid from the meme. 6'7". And then here we have, um, you know, two people facing away from each other. I feel like I don't need to explain that, though. Great. The other day, I came to the horrific realization that the inside joke has all but died. The realization that in the past, each friend group of any age and in any place would have had a unique set of highly circumstantial jokes relative to their place, time, and shared experiences that they could rattle off to get their giggles. This is totally the case. I think I came to this realization over the summer, but it took me until a couple weeks ago to actually put this down into an article. But I was at a context, but I was at some middle school for some reason, or having to deal with middle schoolers for whatever reason. And basically, I rattled off. I don't even know if anyone even remembers this anymore. I hope they do. I just said, tung, 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 sahur. Uh, and, I'm greeted with laughter. They're like, oh my God, he's cool. This guy gets it. But really, that gave me this weird idea. Like, we are in such a strange period where, like I say here, in the past, you really would have had these inside jokes that were part of a friend group's actual ethos that you had to come to through a certain lived experience. And now you have this incredibly strange phenomenon where you can go up to basically anybody across the country and they're gonna know your meaning, they're gonna get your joke. And and I've talked to some people since publishing this article, and they're like, "Oh, that's not such a bad thing." Um, it's like everybody gets to be on the inside joke, but that kind of just defeats. That's a contradiction in terms. It's an oxymoron. So yeah. Anyway, that's kind of how I came to the realization around that. Nowadays, however, I can go into any elementary school, middle school, high school, and it pains me to say this university across the country, if not the world, really lift my hands in the scale-like motion and utter 6'7" and be met with laughs and groans. I kind of just went through that above, but yeah, I believe the shift from organic humor to spoon-fed humor to be a tragedy of great consequence and one that has sadly flown under the radar for most people. If you aren't convinced, or if the mere mention of a certain tung 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 sahur, I already mentioned him, engenders the beginnings of a grin on your face, then I encourage you to read on. For those of you who sympathize with my view, I encourage you all the same. Let's begin. And same thing applies here. Watch on. In humor, there exist two categories of jokes. One, the outside joke. This is your average joke, setup, punchline, easy to understand with little or moderate context, and chuckle inducing. The staple method of the stand up comedian, blue collar construction worker, and dad. This is rudimentary stuff, but when you're watching a Shane Gillis comedy special and he's talking about, his girlfriend's ex who's a Navy SEAL, you don't have to have some esoteric knowledge to understand the joke. And that's really all I'm getting at with that joke. Setup, punchline, no outside context needed. Now, the inside joke, on the other hand, this is the outside joke's esoteric younger brother who thrives the less he is understood and who requires high contextual knowledge, possibly even requiring the dreaded "you had to be there." And I say dreaded because I don't know if any of you have had the experience where you're with your boys and they're chatting about some trip or some experience that you missed, and they go, and you say, "Oh, what are you guys talking about?" And they hit you with, "I guess you just had to be there, bro. You just had to be there." That's soul crushing. So that's why I said dreaded. But I really do think some things you did just have to be there for. Now, for the purpose of this essay, though, we are going to be restricting our focus to that of the inside joke, what makes it so special, why it is important for healthy relationships, and how social media has all but killed it, replacing it with a far more sinister, monocultural pseudo inside joke, tung tung tung, sahur, case and point. Now, here's the beauty of the inside joke. What I'm about to say, I mean partially in jest, though I'm half tempted to believe it. The worth of a man might be measured not by the number of his friends nor the length of relationships, but rather on the number of inside jokes he shares. Readers might object to this claim. I myself would not die on its hill, but I do suspect there is a kernel of truth to it. For there are few greater pleasures or privileges in friendship than having been admitted to take part in the eternally amusing and necessarily exclusive ritual of bonding that can be found in a great inside joke, a ritual which cannot be bought, borrowed, or mimicked. To be a part of an inside joke means that one must have shared some common experience with the friends whom he shares the joke, and that through their shared experience, they have cooperatively crafted either a word, phrase, dance, or expression that can be harvested repeatedly at intervals. For much like soil, it cannot be harvested year round without going bad, to the utmost hilarity and amusement of all those present, and to the confused bewilderment of all those not in the know. Really, what I'm getting at here, like, this is kind of in jest. Obviously, I don't think your worth should be measured off of the amount of inside jokes you have. I think it's totally possible even to have friendships maybe without an inside joke, but I do think there is something to be said for the fact that when you're able to establish that rapport with somebody, it means you click on a fundamental level. It means you see the world in a certain way. And also it allows you this, it's kind of this vessel of which you can come back to time and time again if conversation is falling flat or anything like this. And this doesn't just go for friendships either. I would say like relationships too. My current relationship with my girlfriend, we've been dating for almost 2 years. Congrats to us. But I mean, we've like countless times, and especially early on in our relationship, we would have these inside jokes that were completely nonsensical. You would totally not understand what they were if you didn't have the context that we had. But I mean, they allowed us to bond on such a deeper level, and I really do think they're. I'm not just kind of talking out my ass here when I say that there's something really important about the inside joke in its function in relationships. So where did I leave off? And to the confused bewilderment of all those not in the know. It is this shared experience and cooperative nature of the inside joke that makes it so special. Inside jokes have lineage and history, and even sometimes house entire etymologies within them. For example, in 8th grade, my friends and I, despite being rather Caucasian and living in rural Vermont, thought we would try our hands at SoundCloud rap stardom. One of our friends was named Wyatt and went by Young Richie on SoundCloud. But by the end of the 8th grade year, his name had changed into the enigmatic Churd. I will now attempt to walk you through a brief etymology of that name. Young Richie changed into Richard, and this is let me preface this. This is one of my boys from middle school, and this is literally what happened. And I'm sure many of you have the same experience where it's like you have one nickname and then over time it becomes another one. That's just another form, as far as I'm concerned, of an inside joke. This time it's pertaining to naming, but I mean it's really the same thing. So we got Young Richie, which became Richard, which became Frigid. We had this really funny picture of him. He had like some ketchup right here, and he's just like in my fridge with the doors partially shut. He wasn't a big guy back then, so he could kind of fit in there. Now he's kind of a house. But yeah, then that became Shittered. I'm not going to get into that one, but that's also, I guess you just had to be there. Brickard, this was basketball related. He couldn't really hoop. Not that I can either, to be quite frank. And then we got to Bitchard, which was just us kind of being dicks, though he probably earned it. And then finally, we arrive at the shortened Churd. Where this came from, Young Richie to Churd is, I mean, they literally bear no resemblance to each other, but you would have to follow that etymology. And I'm giving it to you. I'm letting you in on the context here. But that's something that without me doing this etymology, you could never understand where that nickname is derived from. And that's a shared special thing within my friend group. And I'm sure you and your friend groups have similar things. And that's what I think is so special about the inside joke. But I digress. Let me continue. This is by no means the best example, and perhaps it is a case where you really just had to be there, but I think it does well to showcase the versatility, stupidity, creativity, and uniqueness that comes with an organic, unmimetic inside joke. I say unmimetic because I'm referring to Rene Girard's mimetic theory, which is just the idea that we want things because other people want them. And that same could be applied to Instagram humor. I am going to say good boy when you pick up some trash off the ground because I saw it on a reel. You know what I mean? Good boy. Like it's stupid, Let's continue. But there is a deeper philosophical dimension here. All right, here we go. We're getting philosophical, everybody. Just as the sun also rises was a part of Ernest Hemingway, and the telephone was a part of Alexander Graham Bell, the inside joke is a piece of those who create it. The Sun Also Rises is a reflection on Hemingway's unique place, time, and mood. And when we read it, Hemingway himself is revealed to us in a similar way. An inside revealed to us in a similar way, an inside joke reveals its authors and traces the contours of lived friendship. It is evidence that a group of friends dwelt together, for any Heidegger scholars out there, dwelt, very Heideggerian language, dwelt together on a specific phenomenon until it took a unique form, proof that a group of people saw through the same eyes and reached mutual and hilarious understanding. I'm getting kind of pedantic with my words here, but that is essentially the case. Like, you look at anything that has been created, anything made, and that speaks to the author. Now the problem today is we've got so much actual just AI slop that it doesn't speak to any real lived experience. It's actually quite literally a simulacra of things that already exist. AI is just pulling together images that already exist. It's not creating anything fundamentally new. But my problem isn't just with AI. I think even referencing things that are made by humans but came to us algorithmically is still a lesser form of what I say is dwelling together on a phenomena and then letting it take a form, whether it's Bitchard or what have you, any other nickname or joke. All right, here I'm going to give a little caveat here. Now, the reason I made my earlier remarks about the measure of a man being the number of inside jokes he takes part in jest was because while I do believe the inside joke should be a powerful metric for judging a man's social life, I don't think it the highest available metric for making such judgments. For such things, we will briefly turn to Aristotle. Well, pomegranate juice. Wow. Yeah, tart hits the spot though. While Aristotle values wittiness as a social virtue that enables graceful and pleasant interaction, he distinguishes such traits from the deeper moral excellence that sustain true friendship. A friendship grounded in virtue, defined by mutual pursuit of the good, is therefore higher than the one maintained by social charm or shared amusement, and highest of all of those based merely on utility. Okay, so here we're turning to Aristotle's model, where he has three forms of friendship. He has the friendship based on virtue, which is the good of the other. You're willing the good of the other in that relationship. The second kind of middle form, it's not as good as that, but it's not as bad as the lowest form, is the friendship of pleasure, which is somewhat self-explanatory. You're friends and you have a good time together. And then the third and lowest is that of utility, where you're only friends with someone because of what you can get from them. And so a friendship based off of the inside joke is obviously more off of pleasure than off of virtue. Although I think some things can still be said, and we're going to continue in getting into that. So we have all had the experience of friendship that is affable and deeply amusing, but that lacks anything approaching intimacy or virtue. It is the person that always makes you laugh, but knows not whether you are an only child or have siblings. That person who can stimulate your larynx without the slightest knowledge of what moves the gears of your soul. And yet, to dismiss wittiness as revealed through the inside joke altogether would be unfair. The inside joke, for all of its lightheartedness, does attest to a shared life, one that is not packaged but constructed, and allows for two or more people to inhabit the same world, a kind of play Aristotle himself would approve of. Therefore, while not the highest measure of friendship, it is clear beyond doubt that the inside joke plays a pivotal role in the cultivation of our bonds of fellowship. Bonds of fellowship, taking a little bit of language from Lord of the Rings. And really what I'm saying here is that, maybe it's not off of virtue. And I think there are times where we can be overly dependent on the inside joke too. I can think of times, I guess, or friendships that I have where it's like, I'm cracking the same joke with you every time I see you, because we're really not that tight, but we also we're both affable and social people. So I might dap you up at a party and say, hey, what's going on? And then we'll have said joke and we'll just banter off that, riff off that for 2 to 15 minutes, who knows? And we leave, but we haven't really deepened our connection. So the inside joke, I think, can stay at a superficial level, but I still think even off of this, it can build into a lot more, and is still a key part of friendship. Okay, here is the real meat and potatoes of this piece. and that is the death of the inside joke. I'm gonna have another sip of pomegranate juice real quick. Oh yeah, I'm gonna have to switch to water. I think this is not really refreshing me that much. Okay, the death of the inside joke. It has now been said that the inside joke, in its wittiness, while not superior to the higher virtues of friendship, is an essential ingredient for it, a kind of social yeast that allows for friendship to rise. If this is the case, and the inside joke truly is the mark of lived friendship and shared worldview, even if vulgar, then what does it mean for our relationships if the inside joke is disappearing? And more importantly, what will happen to our friendships if they no longer bear the strange and unpredictable marks of shared life? And this, I mean, this goes into a broader thing that I've been stressing and really worrying about lately with modernity, is that everything that comes to us is database driven, algorithmic. Whether it's my feed determining what I see and your feed determining what you see, so we're consuming, or it's even like restaurant recommendations. I less and less am turning to a friend, and rather I'm going on Yelp, which is literally just a database recommendation there, but there's nothing personal about it. Yes, it's a collective experience, but it's not as lived. And maybe for some people this won't seem like a huge problem. It's like, oh, what's the big deal? It's more useful, it's helpful. I think it's just creating layers between us and the actual world. And I think furthering this modern project that to me screams of disembodiment. But let's continue. So what does this mean? Friendships, they no longer bear the strange and unpredictable marks of shared life. Much has already been made of the loss. I'm taking a little tangent here. Much has already been made of the loss of epic or famous friendships. That is to say, Aristotle's highest form of friendship based on shared love of virtue, like that of Frodo and Sam in The Lord of the Rings. So this is Aristotle's highest type of friendship, shared virtue. And I think these are few and far between these days. And I don't want to sound pessimistic. I just think, and I say this here, these are the kinds of friendships that are deeply ironic, that our deeply ironic and sincerity averse culture would rather assail with allegations of homosexuality than confront in their virtuous and non pleasure seeking totality. What do I mean by this? I think these friendships are really just fading away because we are so ironic as a culture. We are so in that it's not that deep, bro, kind of mentality, that if you're really tight with one of your boys, you're gonna get hit with, oh dude, you guys are so gay. And that's not the type of thing that really should bother you, but these are still barriers that make these things less less appealing to most people. And I also think, as I'm going to get into, the way in which we interact in our friendships, the way that friendships are more and more based off of what we consume rather than what we create together, has also made them just less valuable in general. And they're not spatial anymore either. I mean, friendships are so just diluted throughout the internet, and you can have friends all over the place. And in some ways this is great, but it also, you're not going to get Frodo and Sam from Discord. I hate to say it. You know what I mean? You're not going to get uh Dookie and Johnny Test. That was kind of a weirder pull, but I think you get what I'm saying right now. So yeah, and I think our culture being ironic is something that I love. David Foster Wallace has some really good interviews where he talks about it from like the early 2000s or late 90s or something. That I would highly recommend checking out, but it's definitely something I want to write on more in the future. The it's not that deep, bro culture. Okay. Such a loss leaves us culturally with only two other forms of friendship. That's right. So if we don't have the virtuous friendship, that means we only have the friendship of pleasure and we have the friendship of utility. Such a loss leaves us culturally with only two other forms of friendship, those of pleasure and utility. Now, it is true that inside jokes are pleasure inducing, but the kind of pleasure they offer is unlike that of the meme or viral soundbite. It is participatory rather than consumptive, creative rather than imitative. And yet, increasingly, even our pleasures have been standardized. And this gets back to what I'm talking about with we are everything is data based, everything is algorithm based. It's becoming, we're homogenizing into this monoculture of sorts. I mean, we already kind of have been. For a culture constantly laughing, we seem to laugh less with one another, but rather at the same things. This is a crucial point right here. It might seem like it's not a big difference, but it is. Our humor has become homogenized and is fed to us in 6-second spoonfuls of entropic slop. I personally like that turn of phrase. I do think meme culture is entropic. I mean, you used to, just look at the evolution of memes. You used to have kind of punchline setup. The picture kind of relates to what's being seen. Then you got more and more. I kind of think of like Uganda, and I don't want to be too much of a meme historian, and I wouldn't claim to be one. But then you like post Uganda Knuckles. I think something happens to memes where it's just increasingly random, and that's entropy basically. This kind of coming apart of sense. There's no inherent meaning. Where now you will literally get like a clip of like people falling or like a dog twerking all cut together with like a Spanish man saying like "Hey Dio mío, mamiente," and then you'll get like a ringtone. I'm not kidding. Like this is real stuff that I've seen. I'm chronically online enough to know that these things exist, and so it is entropic slop. Like let's not beat around the bush. And our humor, I mean, Italian brain rot. Need I say more? But our humor has become completely homogenized. It is fed to us now. It's like yeah, algorithms specify to you to an extent, but like it's you're not picking it, and you're certainly not creating it. And if you are, frankly, shame on you because this shit is, I mean, it's brain rot. Uh, but yeah, rationed rather than rectified. Oh wait, did I finish that? More distributed than discovered, rationed rather than rectified. Okay. What was once an intimate pleasure found within friendship has become a global lingua franca of irony and, for lack of an original term, brain rot. And with the speed of internet meme culture, it is no longer necessary to create inside jokes. For in a week, there will be a new absurdity to laugh at. I have noticed this. Like, I feel like I have less inside jokes. Period. I find myself coming up with bits less and less, which is something like I really enjoyed as a kid. I was always the kid who was more focused on making the class laugh than actually getting good grades, which has its drawbacks, obviously. But you know, all that being said, uh, there will be a new absurdity to laugh at. I mean, yeah, I mean, they're the speed of these things too. You know, it was Ashton Hall. Ashton Hall feels like a century ago. You know what I mean? Saratoga water. That was, who knows how long ago that was. I think you'd get a really weird look if you even, people would just cringe, you know, if you said, that's the other thing. This is actually, you know what? This is great. I didn't even include this in my article. That's another thing. These things clearly are not funny or good or humorous in any way. We think they're funny at the time, but if I were to come up to someone and go tralalero tralala, like unironic, well, I shouldn't say unironically, but just mention it in conversation, people are just gonna, oh, 6'7" is already to that point. I don't know what the next thing is gonna be that's really big, but I mean, the thing is like these things don't have staying power. There's no repeat value to them. After they've been cycled out, like if I'm saying chop chin, people are gonna go like, "Oh, crazy pull," but they're not gonna laugh. More likely, they're gonna cringe, and that just tells you how shit these things are. Whereas when I see my boy and I go, "Yo, what up, churd?" We dap up, dude. That's history right there. That's history. And I say this partially in jest, but I actually think this is real shit. I think this is true. Um, okay. Now, if virtuous friendship has already died, think Frodo and Sam there, guys, and now even creative pleasure is on its way out, being replaced by shared consumption, then it would seem that now only a shared taste in consumption can unite people in friendship. This likely will be only temporary, that is. If algorithmic individualization keeps evolving as fast as it is, soon every person will have their own private taste in consumption, leading to a world of purely utilitarian friendships, the lowest rung of Aristotle's model. This is, I mean, maybe I'm getting a little too doomsday with this, but I do fear a Wall-E scenario to an extent with algorithms and now VR and Neuralink kind of around the corner. As things we already know about the phenomena of kind of getting siloed into your feed and not seeing stuff that literally someone standing right next to you could be seeing, because of the way the algorithm preferences your content and this is kind of the issue with consumption in general. It's you're letting an algorithm take control of what you see. Um, but this is my great fear that we're going to get a bit of a Wally scenario, and then that would mean that if we're not even consuming together, which I do not view highly at all, I think you should be. If you're having a pleasureful friendship, create something together. Start a fucking band. You know, me and my boy Churd, actually, fun fact. I mean, in high school, this never went anywhere, but we would get together every day and we would draw maps and we would write history for this fantasy world that we were creating. We wrote about, like, I don't know, 200 pages of a fantasy novel that never went anywhere. And I've looked back on it. It's not even that bad for sophomores in high school. And like, that's how you really build a friendship. You create stuff together. You don't just consume the same things. I don't want to be friends with you simply off the fact that we have read the same things and watched the same media. That's a great starting point, but that can't be the basis. That can't be the basis of a friendship, and it certainly can't maintain it. So the fear then is that if we get into this Wally scenario, friendships are going to be purely utilitarian. It's all just going to be one LinkedIn networking circle jerk, and that would suck ass. So that's the fear here. Let's finish this thing off. I'll say a few more, then I'll say a few more things. Um, Purely utilitarian friendships, the lowest rung of Aristotle's model. Perhaps then the death of the inside joke signals something larger: the replacement of creation with consumption as the basis of friendship. This is the real kicker of my article. This is really what I'm trying to get to. The fact that I don't think we create as friends anymore. I think everything is consumption based. Everything. I think I don't know where to look and this not be the case. Uh, and so this is why my Substack is called Attention Economics. I'm very interested in the ethical ramifications of attention. You know what I mean? When our attention is constantly directed at screens or at other forms of media or at other forms of consumption. I mean, this is late stage galloping capitalism. And I'm not even like this huge anti-capitalist or anything. It's just this is what you're going to get, when everybody is just consuming everything. And so that's the fear. That's the fear. I mean, to hell with virtuous friendships. That would be great, right? But I mean, if we can't even have pleasureful friendships of creation, this is rough. Let's see where we at. The replacement of creation with consumption is the basis of friendship. It has often been said that relationships formed only around drinking are not friendships at all, but a shared allegiance to alcohol. Yet we might ask the same of our age of endless entertainment, delivery, and distraction. This kind of Uber Eats subsistence culture. If every bond is mediated by consumption, by the show we watch, the food we order, the feed we scroll, then to what exactly are we bound? And think about that for a second. Really, what are we bound by as friends, if not just our habits of consumption? True friendship, like true leisure, is creative. It takes time, attention, and a willingness to dwell in the same world without the aid of an algorithm. The inside joke was once the purest form of that leisure, a fragment of reality seen, named, and remembered together. To lose it is to lose not just a kind of laughter, but a way of being human. The task then is simple: stop looking and laughing at, but to once more see together, create together, and laugh together. To make a joke again that nobody will understand except those who were there. Just ending off with that "you had to be there" moment. Yeah, I think this is the way back. And in terms of doing this, it's tough because, especially with our with computers, they're a little more malleable in terms of adjusting what you see. But if phones are part of daily life, you have to be on your phone. And if you're on your phone, you're forced to see things. You're forced to get notifications. And these things literally function like slot machines. And so you're constantly divided. Your attention's constantly divided. You're constantly consuming. You're constantly bombarded. And fighting to get that attention back and to put it towards the right things, to put it towards creation rather than consumption, I think is the real kicker and the real thing that we have to work towards. Um, yeah. And again, like, if we're losing out on our creative ability, our ability to harness the logos and make sense of it, create form out of it, and just falling into this ever random monoculture of slop. What exactly? How exactly are we using that capacity to logos? That capacity to reason. I think we're losing an element of our humanity in that case. But that's all I got. Again, this piece was on my Substack, guys. I would really appreciate it if you shot me a sub over there, or even just a like. Anything would help. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will be putting another one out soon. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Nick Moran. My Substack is it's Corin Moran, Attention Economics. Hit it up. But yeah, that's it. Have a good one. Bye bye.